Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. We are joined by Democratic presidential candidate and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. Welcome, Secretary Clinton. We're glad to have you. Let's start in the news. Syrian refugees.
Right.
President Obama has said he will increase the number allowed in to 10,000. Is that enough?
You know, look, we're facing the worst refugee crisis since the end of World War II, and I think the United States has to do more, and I would like to see us move from what is a good start with 10,000 to 65,000 and begin immediately to put into place the mechanisms for vetting the people that we would take in, looking to really emphasize some of those who are most vulnerable, a lot of the persecuted religious minorities, including Christians, and some who have been brutalized, like the Yazidi women. But I also want the United States to lead the world, and I've recommended that at the upcoming UN General Assembly, there be an international meeting called by the Secretary General and literally get people to commit, putting money in, helping the frontline states like Jordan and Turkey and Lebanon, who've absorbed a lot of refugees, working with the EU and the European countries, but getting everybody to make a contribution.
Let me ask you about the underlying condition creating this refugee crisis. You advocated for arming the Syrian rebels. That was then ultimately put in place. We now hear that that is not going well at all. Out of 12,000 Syrians that have been trained, there are only a handful that can actually fight. Was this a bad idea, or was this a bad idea, or was this a good idea poorly executed?
Well, John, I did recommend that at the beginning of this conflict, we do more to help train those who were in the forefront of leading the opposition against Assad, looking to try to bring the moderates together. A lot of these rebels originally, they were business people, they were professional people, they were students. They had no training in going up against the Syrian army, which Assad clearly was going to use to the ultimate effect. That was not the decision taken at that time. A lot of what I worried about has happened. There are now big ungoverned territories within Syria that are dominated by terrorist groups, ISIS being the best known, but not the only one. You have Iran and Russia increasingly moving in to support Assad in his constant bombardment against his own people, and then you have these millions of refugees. So where we are today is not where we were, and where we are today is that we have a failed program. You heard the testimony. 5 people trained for $500 million, $500 million. But I think we still have to keep working with the Turks, with the Jordanians, with others of our partners. We also have to do more to support the Kurds, something that I have also advocated.
Let me ask you about Russia. So it looks like U.S. policy now is we're not going to train and equip has failed. So now we're going to turn to the Russians for help. These are the same Russians who are busy in Ukraine doing things we don't like them to do. The Israelis think that the Russians are involved with Hezbollah. Why are we turning to the Russians?
Well, I hope we're not turning to the Russians. Let me just quickly say that I wouldn't give up on train and equip, but I sure would push the Pentagon to take a hard look at why what has been done has been such a failure, and what more we could do to support like Kurdish fighters who are on the front lines. And one of the difficulties we had in the train and equip is that we basically were trying to train people to only take on ISIS and terrorist networks. We were not training and equipping them to take on Assad or his military or his proxies, which include Hezbollah, by the way. I hope we're not turning to the Russians in that way. I hope what we're doing, and this is what I support, and I heard Secretary Kerry say this is what we will be doing, and I think Secretary Carter has begun these conversations. First of all, we have to figure out what they are doing. Russia has a long interest in Syria. They've had a base in a naval base in Syria for a long time. They have a connection because a lot of Syrians were educated in the Cold War in Moscow, and a lot of Russians actually moved to Syria. So they have not only deep links to Syria and Syrians, but they intend to support Assad for their own reasons. And we need to really unpeel what it is they're trying to accomplish and work with others to try to contain them. And I want to just end by saying, if they are providing any equipment to Hezbollah, if they are supporting Hezbollah, which is the main fighting force on behalf of the Iranians to support Assad, but also a deadly threat to Israel, then we have got to take actions, whether they're tougher sanctions or other kinds of actions, to try to prevent that from happening.